Well, let's stay on this issue and bring in Sarah Clarke. She is the co-complainant for the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society of Canada in this case. Ms. Clarke, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Listen, I want to begin here with your reaction to the decision because, as you know, there is some disappointment being expressed among the AFN leadership and others, but is it fair to say that you are relieved this has happened?
So keeping in mind that I'm counsel for the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society, I think what I would say on behalf of the Caring Society's legal team is that I don't think really relief is the best expression. I think some concern around the fact that it has taken this long to get to this point. It is unfortunate, I think, that this had to even come to this. What we can say, though, is that it is a good day for human rights in Canada. It is a good day for children's human rights, because what the tribunal said in its ruling that was released yesterday is that all children who have already had their human rights affirmed by the tribunal have to be part of the settlement. So from that perspective, I think we are very pleased that no children are going to be cut out of the settlement.
Okay, let's build on that, though, because I think it might be worthwhile to remind people about who the final settlement agreement does not, in your opinion, cover, and why you think it's important that it does.
So we have to go back to 2007, and it's hard to, I'm sure in the short time that we have today, try to jam in everything that's happened over the last decades that this case has been going on. But it's important to remember that since 2007, the Assembly of First Nations and the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society together had brought this massive human rights complaint against the federal government for its unfair and discriminatory funding for children on reserve receiving child welfare services and also for children receiving social services. And so when discrimination was found in 2016, it did so, within the framework of the complaint. So it said that kids who were removed from their home, family, or communities were entitled to compensation, and kids who were delayed or denied in basic social services that other Canadians are entitled to are also entitled to compensation. So those are the kids that form part of the complaint. What happened in this case is that outside of the human rights process, a number of class actions were also commenced. And those class actions don't necessarily mirror what's been going on at the human rights complaint side. And that's not to suggest that those victims are not entitled to compensation. Never has the Caring Society said that other kids who are part of other pieces of litigation should not be compensated. But what we have said is that the kids who are part of this complaint, who have already won legal orders and have already had their entitlements recognized by the tribunal, need to be a part of the settlement. And what ultimately happened was that in the class action settlement, some children, in particular kids who were in what we call non-federally funded placements, so kids who were removed from their families and placed outside of their homes, but weren't necessarily in federally funded foster care, the final settlement agreement that was brought to the tribunal cut those kids out. And what we said to the tribunal was, those kids can't be cut out. You've already given them an award of money. They need to be part of the settlement.
And yet, the final settlement agreement was negotiated with Indigenous leadership. And right now, they are very disappointed. We just heard from Chief Woodhouse in Manitoba talking about how long it took to get to this point and the concern that by essentially delaying the compensation package, that we could be seeing years before any compensation is paid out. She's worried about a change of government. How do you address those concerns and those fears now being raised because of this decision?
Well, I think what's important that we have to keep in mind, and Canada has always had the power to do the right thing. So from the moment the complaint was brought in 2007 to the moment the tribunal said that Canada was discriminating against in 2016, to the moment the tribunal said you need to compensate these children, these victims right here and right now, that was in 2019. And Canada chose not to do that. Instead, it chose to continue fighting against the Assembly of First Nations, fighting against the Caring Society, and really what that really means is litigating against kids and their basic human rights. So I echo those fears around delay and concerns, but Canada has the power to do the right thing right now. They could pay the money out from the tribunal orders to all of the victims who already have won those legal entitlements and continue to negotiate with the class action team. There is nothing stopping them from doing that. I don't want to minimize the concerns. They are real concerns, and if you're a kid waiting for your settlement, that's a real concern. But what the Caring Society wanted to make sure was that kids who already had been promised by the Human Rights Tribunal that you matter, you have basic human rights in this country that we recognize, and we're going to compensate you for the infringement of your dignity and for being discriminated against. All we said to the tribunal was, you cannot cut those children out. And the tribunal agreed. It said, we have already recognized that these children have fundamental rights, and we can't now derogate from those rights because the settlement doesn't quite squeeze them in.
Okay, I need a really quick answer here. So listening to that, you don't think this needs to go back to the drawing board? You think the federal government can just go ahead and compensate and get this over and done with?
I think the federal government has always had the power to do what's right. It knows what's right. The solutions are right there in front of it. The tribunal has told them how they can do the right thing, and they should just do it.
Sarah Clarke, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.